Welcome. Sorry I'm a minute late. I had to make some coffee, you know. You can't do this without coffee. That's what I've learned. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Studio Q show live. I hope everybody's doing well. We're back in here we are in September. Welcome to September. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe we're in September, but there we go. So everybody's doing good. Good to see everybody. Jeffrey and Boguslav, good to see you again, brother. And Pablo. Pablo got a haircut. Look at that. Looks good, brother. Looks good. Big afro. I like to just chop it all down. I don't like to do all that stuff. So welcome, everybody. My name is Quinn Jacobson. This is the Studio Q show live. I know most of you don't watch it live, and that's okay. But I hope you're healthy, happy, and doing well. We've got something really interesting to share today. I don't know why Sutton follows me around, Thomas Sutton, the guy we've been spending all those weeks in his book, but I found another great piece from Sutton, and I'm going to share that. Hello, Will and Christian and Thilo and Mini Photon and Steve. Yes, Thilo. Yes, somebody's tried Sutton's Dry Collodion, and I'm going to share that today. And we also have an experiment on what I'm going to share with you in just a minute here as example. So let's jump into it. Let's not waste any time. Share screen. There it is. Share that one. And here we go. Let's look at this. We're going to do a couple of things today. Obviously, like I said, today is September 4th, 2021. Welcome to the month of September. Summer's not over for us up here, but maybe the southern hemisphere is just starting spring. Hello, sir. Welcome. Good to see you. So what we're going to do today, we're going to come in here. We're going to look at wet and dry collodion again today, tips, tricks, and information. And this is from the Photographic News Volume 7, edited by G. Wharton Simpson. If you don't know who G. Wharton Simpson is, and you've never tried colloidal chloride paper, a pot paper I have in my book, he's the guy that released that. It's a great colloidal chloride aristotype. There's gelatin and collodion, different binders, but aristotypes are beautiful. One of my favorite printing out processes. This is the guy that edited this particular volume of Photographic News. We're also going to look at news and social media, some updates. I need to make a correction from last week. And technical questions and answers, recommended reading, recommended watching, of course, all that good stuff we try to put in. So I found this article in The Guardian. I know it's a little bit older, but this article came up, Photography, Is It Art? I recommend we should have this conversation on this show one week. Just slot a half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe the entire hour, whatever, and talk about this. And I know people get really upset about, is it art, is it not art? What we'd want to do is frame it in a way from the historical perspective, like this. The Guardian says for 180 years, people have been asking the question, is photography art? And we've talked about this in the past, right? The early photographers were scientists and inventors, and they brought it out as a mechanical device, and they postured it as, you know, the physics and chemistry is doing all the work, and the machine is doing all the work, and the artist is, the photographer's left out, so how could it be art? But at an early meeting of the Photographic Society of London, established in 1853, one of the members complained that the new technique was, quote, too literal to compete with works of art because it was unable to elevate the imagination. Same kind of reference to that, right? So we should have a conversation about this. Nobody needs to get upset and weird about it, and this is art, this isn't, whatever, right? We can have our own definitions of those words and those ideas, but share them, and you know, maybe we can learn something from each other. I put the link up there. You should take a look at that. Gursky's photograph that sold for 2.7 million pounds, about 4 million US dollars, about 7 million Canadian dollars. So, does money make art kind of question? You know, we should have this conversation. That article came up in my feed. I thought I'd just throw it out there for a future conversation, something to think about. And then last week was a birthday of one of our favorite photographers, Gustave Le Gray, Jean-Baptiste, John the Baptist Gustave Le Gray, born August 30th, 1820. Happy 201st birthday, brother. A little late, but He's the guy that did that first combination printing with wet collodion negatives, got the sky and got the seascapes. Everybody knows about that and talks about that. But so that's kind of the social media post that I made this week, or in reference to the historical photographic processes. And then I want to do a little correction here. I had this weird pronunciation of iodic acid. I said it all kinds of different ways, but this is how you say it, okay? And I put a kind of a little video out there that you can hear.
Iodic
acid. This is iodic. Right. Thank you very much. This is a byproduct of old red collodion releasing in the bath, in the silver bath, both nitric acid and iodic acid into the bath, making, well, the question was, what does red collodion do? Why does it slow down? Why does it slow down or slow down your ISO or speed? Because of the release, the breakdown of the iodide, the salt in the collodion, turning the collodion red, which is iodine going into the silver bath, and that double decomposition process releasing nitric acid and iodic acid. I said it right, iodic acid. So I wanted to make that clarification. Another thing I want to share. Let me do this real quick. I don't know if you guys ever saw this. Anybody familiar with the collodion quarterly back in the day? I bring this up because if you have a copy of this, it was only one. It was only one edition of it, but it was really good. And I see people publishing these now. Where's some good stuff in here? Here's Mark Zimmerman. Mark Zimmerman was in it. He shared this work up on the show one time. Who else was in it? This is A Fragile Existence, Mark Zimmerman. These are really good. I saw other people now producing collodion pieces, publications. There's John Brewer's, something from John Brewer, it says here. Oh, there's Malit. We're going to talk about Malit. There's Malit's image here. We're going to talk about her. And I don't know if Steve had anything in these. This was back in, I don't know what year it was. Alexei. But they featured me in this one, which is kind of nice. They did he did. It was just kind of a Kickstarter or something thing. But this was really interesting. I bring this up because people now are coming back around, and you see this every few years. You see this kind of, I don't know, what would you call it? Publication about collodion, and then it fades off. I've seen 3 or 4 of them come over the last 20 years. Some of them are really good. And that one particularly, I thought, not just because I'm in it, but I thought it was pretty good. It featured the work. It talked about the work. It featured artists and things like that. It was really interesting. I don't have it in my blood to do it, but I love to see them, and I love to contribute if I can to them. So I thought I'd bring that up. If you have any of those publications, and you see my bookshelves starting to fill up. This is why we're unpacking. Now I have my office is all full of my work and my guitars and all my stuff here. So everything's kind of coming together, and I'm running into this really wonderful stuff. And I'm sharing some of it on Facebook, but little images from Barcelona, things. I have so much stuff, photographic and art wise. It's just amazing. Hello, Bogota, Colombia, South America. Oh, Collodionista. There you go. Welcome back. Good to see you. So anyway, that's social media news updates. Gustave Legray. We know how to say iodic now. So here's what I want to share today. This is so cool. The need for speed. Increase your ISO. Do you believe this stuff? I want to put a little caveat out. Dale Wilson was kind enough to run a test for me this week. I'm about 2 or 3 weeks out from being able to do something. So I have a whole journal full of notes that I want to run experiments on and do things. But Dale Wilson was kind enough to run this experiment for us. But here's what it is. This is from the Photographic News, and the author of this is Thomas Sutton again, right? This isn't in his book. This is a Photographic News, 1863, edited by Simpson, the guy, Collodion chloride prints, aristotypes. So here's what it is. We go along, and I think I want to put a caveat here. I'm thinking this is better for negatives. We're going to look at some positives, but I think this is a better process for negatives than positives, but I'm not certain yet because I haven't got to try it yet. But here's what it is. You sensitize your plate, or you pour your collodion on your plate, you sensitize it in your silver bath, and rather than pulling it out of your silver bath after 2 to 5 minutes, whatever you sensitize in your weather and time, rather than wiping the back off and putting in your plate holder, you put it in a pan of distilled water. And you wash it for about a minute, and then you run it under tap water for a minute or two. Then you put it back. I do distilled water again before you go back in your silver bath. Then you put it in your silver bath again and resensitize it. And Sutton claims this increases your ISO your speed, the speed of your plate by 50 to 100%. So sensitize, wash, sensitize, then expose. Very interesting stuff. I've never seen this before. Never heard of it before. It's very interesting. So let's talk about what this means. This is from the article, Increasing the Sensitivity of Wet Collodion Plates, Thomas Sutton. So he goes to say, one of the directions in which photographers most anxiously look for advance in their art is that of obtaining increased sensitivity of negative plates and positive papers. Our readers will therefore hail with pleasure the announcement that we have discovered a very simple means of exalting the sensitivity of wet collodion plates and at the same time introducing some other advantages. And when I read this and I did the chemistry on it and I did the science on it, it set off so many ding, 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 ding. That's correct. That totally makes sense. Connected the dots. The method can be very simply stated and very easily tried. So true. This is not a big, complicated thing to do. It consists in first washing the excited plate thoroughly in distilled water, or which is the same thing, immersing it in a bath of distilled water, and then re-dipping it in the silver nitrate bath, after which you proceed as usual. By adopting this modification, the common practice, you increase the sensitivity of the plate from 50 to 100% and obtain a softer and more harmonious negative with fewer pinholes and other common defects. And we're going to talk about why this is chemically. It will be interesting to discuss the rationale of this washing and redipping operation, as well as some other experiments which bear upon it. If you take the collodion plate from the silver nitrate bath, wash it with water, expose it in the camera, and then attempt to develop the image in the usual way, you first find that it is absolutely necessary to add silver to the developer. So he's saying if you just take it out of your silver bath, wash it, expose it, and then try to develop it. I've done that. It does not work. You have to add silver. You have to have that free silver in order to obtain a dense negative. And secondly, that the sensitivity of the plate is reduced according to the amount of washing which it has received. This is a general statement of what happens to a washed plate exposed wet. You cannot entirely destroy its sensitivity by any amount of washing because you cannot entirely wash out all the free silver nitrate. But by excessive washing and exposing it wet, you can greatly reduce its sensitivity and render it almost impossible afterwards to get a good dense negative by any method of development. The presence of free silver nitrate in certain quantity in contact with the iodide or bromide of silver is absolutely necessary in order to get the most exalted sensitivity of the plate. So he's just going through saying you have to have that free silver on the plate. Now, why wash it? This is the question, right? So we're just going to skip down here to the highlighted. Everyone who has practiced the dry process knows what a miserable result is obtained upon any of the part of the plate which has not become thoroughly dry. We talked about that last week. Let's talk about why it's important to wash the plate. And here it is. In the first place, there exists in the film, on its removal from the silver nitrate bath, a quantity of potassium nitrate, potassium, cadmium, or ammonium nitrate. So over here on the right, you see on this slide, this cadmium nitrate and ammonium nitrate, we've talked about this double decomposition process, that is released into your bath and on your plate as you sensitize the plate, exchanging these salts, ammonium or cadmium, the iodides and bromides into silver iodide and silver bromide. So that's one byproduct, which no doubt by its mere presence acts mechanically in interrupting the chemical changes which occur during the exposure to light, even supposing that it does not act injuriously in any other way. This nitrate is removed by washing. So the first thing, you wash those nitrates away, right? You wash them away so they're not interfering with the process of the light hitting the plate. Then again, there exists in the film some undecomposed potassium iodide or cadmium iodide, which would be removed by washing. All the presence of which is an unwashed plate could hardly fail to affect the sensitivity considerably. It is well known that a plate which has not been allowed to remain long enough in the bath is less sensitive than one which has remained through the right time. And lastly, in the case of bromoiodized film, which most of us use, right? We have an iodide and a bromide in the collodion. There's always a considerable quantity of undecomposed cadmium or ammonium bromide in an unwashed plate, because instead of minutes, it takes hours to convert the whole of this into silver bromide. So keep that in mind. We only have it in a few minutes. Chemically, this takes hours in a very strong silver nitrate bath to decompose all the bromides. So you always have undecomposed bromides on your plate. We are the first to publish this strange fact. And although it was disputed at the time by some authorities, yet we observe that Major Russell, the dry collodion guy, right? The tannin process in dry collodion, for one, has lately recognized it, for he directs his new bromide plates to be excited in a 60 grain new silver nitrate bath and left 20 minutes in it to decompose that stuff, right? In a 60 grain bath. That's 10% plus, and left 20 minutes in it. Such treatment would be ruinous to an iodized film. Now, all the decomposed cadmium bromide in an unwashed bromoiodized film, which has only been in a few minutes in the bath, must surely interfere greatly with its sensitivity, but it is removed by washing or soaking the plate in a bath of distilled water. So that's the key right there. You're removing the nitrates and you're washing all the undecomposed bromide off of it. Big difference. So here's the bottom line up front, the bluff of it. When you sensitize a plate, the double decomposition process creates compounds of nitrates, cadmium and ammonium. 2, bromides do not completely decompose in a silver bath in 2 to 5 minutes. So there are always bromides that interfere with sensitivity. It takes hours to completely decompose. 3, by washing the plate, you eliminate both of these problems. And 4, what does 50 to 100% increase in sensitivity mean? I'm going to leave that last number 4 question for you. Anybody can figure that out? I know we don't work in percentages much that way. We think in stops, right? So if you had an entire stop, right, you were shooting at f4 in 10 seconds and you had a whole stop off of that, which would be 100%, you can kind of figure that out. 50%, you can kind of figure that out. It's a huge jump in sensitivity, huge. So if you're indoors, if you're in the wintertime and you're using artificial light, this could be something really profound for you if it's good with positives, right? Cadmium bromide, and that's number 2, the asterisk, cadmium bromide decomposing to silver bromide. That's what that takes a long time to do. So that's, I think that's very interesting. So Dale did some tests for us this week. Look at this. Very interesting. Exposure was identical with both plates. 12 seconds under CFL lights, that's compact fluorescent lights, 8x10 camera with his Zeiss Tesla lens. Mike, he's calls this statue Mike. Mike is a light gray marble color on a white background. Black shroud is velvet. So here's the normal processing and development 15 seconds. And here's sensitized 4 minutes, rinse the H2O for 12, 3 minutes in a rinse with tap water, and then sensitize it again an additional 4 minutes. Exposure on the development the same. Look at that increase. That is insane. That's so blown out. I mean, he was over already. So it doesn't matter. This is just, I was blown. I talked to him before he sent these, and I was really shocked to see the difference in this. Getting rid of those nitrates and removing all that undecomposed bromide really made a huge difference. So here's the next one, a little more subtle here. Exposure 12 seconds, And again, he did normal processing on the left, and then he rinsed DH2O for 1 minute and sensitized additional 4 minutes. So you can see the washing has a great effect. That's still a half a stop, though. I can see it. I can see where it's blowing out. I can still see that's a half a stop more. But that additional washing, you can see scientifically, chemically speaking, the huge difference that made. I just want to go back to this one. That is an enormous difference, enormous. And so you can experiment with this. You're already making wet collodion images. Get a pan of distilled water out. That's the only addition to this. And resensitize your plate after you wash it. That's the only thing you have to do. So great tip, I think. It might be interesting for some folks, and some folks it may not matter that much. But thank you, Dale. I appreciate that greatly. He's a great sport, and he's always on board to take on my challenges that I can't do right now. Let's go. I'm going to talk. We're going to get to Malik's dry collodion tests from Sutton's stuff last week. This is from the same publication, the Photographic News 1863. This is rapid tannin plates with an alkaline developer. Let's talk about what difference that makes. So if you're talking about making fast dry plates, and you'll see her exposures on the tannin plates, this process will give you the equivalent of wet collodion image exposure times for dry plates. Big thing, a big deal here, right? So real quickly, the alkaline development of dry plates have proved in our hands an extraordinary success. And by means of it, we have it rendered more than one of the slow dry processes rapid as good wet collodion. So right there he says, if you do this, if you use the alkaline developer, you're going to have the same, you're not going to have 2 and 4 and 6 minute exposures. You're going to have 20 and 30 and 40-second exposures like wet collodion, just as an example. The use of an alkaline developer for dry plates seems to us nearly certain to revolutionize the whole practice of out-of-door photography, whether for slow or instantaneous work, nor is it at all improbable that it may affect considerably the indoor operations of the photographic portraitist. So right off the bat, when you talk dry collodion, you're not talking about doing portraits. You may be talking about doing still lifes, but not necessarily portraits. Not always true. It's just the general consensus that it's so slow, but it's super detailed, right? There are so many good advantages in rapid dry plate that when a good and certain process of preparing and developing such plates is generally understood, they cannot fail to be largely used in preference to wet plate or wet plates, he says. I'm modifying the text a little bit just to read it. Quote, the mode in which we have employed the alkaline developer with so much success is simply as follows. So follow this along with me. When we talk about alkalines and acids, basics and acids, we're talking alkaline is a high pH, right? So limestone, baking soda, pH 12, pH 14. So when we're talking about this, he says, make a saturated solution of baking soda in cold water, meaning you put so much baking soda in it, it can't take up any more. That's what it means to be a saturated solution. So heavy with the baking soda in cold DH2O or distilled water and filter it. Make also an alcoholic solution of pyrogallic acid of the strength of 10 grains to the ounce of alcohol. So that's 0.65 grams of pyro to 29.5 mils of alcohol. And filter it also. Then develop in the following manner the dry plate, which has received only the same exposure as you would give a good wet collodion plate. First wet it all over with distilled or clean rainwater. Then mix it a measure of 1 drachma of the solution of soda and 1 ounce of water and pour this all over the plate. So what he's talking about there is 3.7 mils of the soda, saturated soda or bicarbonate, and 1 ounce or 29.5 mils of DH2O. Pour it all over the plate. The probability is that this will produce no visible effect. Of course not. But that will depend upon the antecedents of the plate, what's happened before the plate, and the mode of its preparation. When the film has been well wetted with a soda solution, return it to the measure, the cup, and add to it. So he says, pour that off and add to it in your cup a few drops of the alcoholic solution, the pyroalcohol, and add it to a few drops pyrogallic acid. Pour the mixture on again over the film. A marvelous effect is now produced. For the dark parts of the picture immediately start out and become distinctly visible, although they do not acquire much intensity. Let this alkaline solution remain a minute or so on the plate till it has developed all the details of the picture, then wash it off and intensify the faint negative in the following manner. First, pour over the film a usual pyrogallic acid developed. We talked about this, right? It's last week's show. You can look at that. Containing acetic acid, but no silver. This does not act as an intensifier, but it neutralizes the alkalinity of the film and prevents fog in the next operation. Okay? Now pour this back into the cup and add a few drops of 20 grain solution of silver nitrate. That's about a 4% silver nitrate. And pour it again over the film. You will now see the thin red negative. It's red because of the glacial acetic acid, which has been obtained by this action of the alkaline, and it's alkaline, right? Alkaline developer become gradually more intense, and the details of the deepest shadows appear and acquire force and printing vigor. Follow up the operation to the proper stage and then complete it by washing off the intensifying solution and fix the negative in the usual way. Your dry plate, which with the ordinary development would have required 10 times the exposure, has now just yielded a dense printing negative, clear as crystal in the lights and red in the blacks, and loaded with details in the shadows. In a word, equal in all respects to a good wet collodion negative. This is surely a marvelous result. I think it's amazing what they reveal in this old literature. This comes from a 678-page volumes of this photographic news. There's just loaded with information. So if you spend time in this old literature, you can learn a lot. I mean, a lot. The alkaline developer will not succeed with every kind of dry plate. This is the caveat here. And we must now state the conditions of the collodion bath and preservative, which has given us rapid results described. Quote, the collodion must be bromoiodized. So you've got to have a collodion with both iodides and bromides in it, and made with pure ether and alcohol, which we have, right? Without any trace of methyl or bad ether, and scarcely tinged of free iodine. A red collodion which liberates nitric acid in the bath and iodic acid, right, will not do. Neither will a collodion simply iodized. However, for a good wet process, good for the wet process. There must be a good strong dose of bromide in the collodion, and the proportion seems to be that in which the collodion contains an equal number of atoms of iodine, and bromide. We've talked about this last week as well. The film should be very creamy, tolerably creamy coming out of the bath, but not so much from the presence of a large dose of iodine and bromide in the collodion as from a sufficient quantity of pyroxylene, meaning nitrocellulose, in your collodion, meaning that a 5% collodion for this would be really good. An over-iodized film is very so again, a red collodion wouldn't be good for this and ought to be avoided. The collodion should also contain the right quantity of water, for it's made absolute ether and alcohol, meaning anhydrous, sorry, I couldn't say that, water-free alcohol and ether, which is typical. The solutions never follow properly upon the film. And if it contains too much water, the negative shows crepey lines and cracks when dry. We've all seen this stuff. The strength of the bath should be at least 30 grains to the ounce, right? 7% or better. And it should be made with pure the good silver nitrate, which we have. And it may be perfectly neutral. Or if acid, it should contain acidic and not nitric acid, the latter acid being a powerful retarding agent. The time of immersion in the bath should be at this season about 3 minutes. So in the summertime, in the warmer weather, about 3 minutes. You can adjust your time from 2 to 5 minutes. Just watch for the reveal. We've talked about how to sensitize a plate. It should not contain any acetate of silver. That was a big problem back in the day. Yeah, science is crazy cool. Well, I love it. I love it. Totally. Hey, Mr. Analog, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. So very interesting stuff there. With respect to the preservative, that's which we have succeeded best is with tannin, 15 grains to the ounce. Just like we talked about last week. I round this off and I say do 1 gram to 30 mils of distilled water. That means if you take 10 grams of tannin and add it to 300 mils of distilled water, use it that day on your plates. Only use it once on each plate and discard it, right? Fresh, really important. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So 15 grains to the ounce, and it does not seem to matter greatly whether the tannin is left to dry on the plate or is washed off immediately after its application. When tannin is used, the edge of the plate should be protected by varnish, meaning you don't want to crack this stuff up. So basically, you're holding that collodion to the plate. Another preservative which seems to answer very well and give highly sensitive plates is a mixture of albumin, honey, and carbonated soda, baking soda. But we have not yet arrived at the best proportions. That's another interesting comment there. Gum arabic does not seem to answer well with the alkaline developer. So this alkaline developer is requiring certain, fresher collodion, not old red collodion, acetate or glacial acetic acid in your bath, not nitric acid, no gum arabic. We talked about speeding the plates up last week with gum arabic. That's a tannin dry process. This is the alkaline developer process. Same tannin plates, but a different developer. On the whole, we prefer tannin or tannin and honey. With plates prepared in this way in an alkaline developer, we have taken breaking waves in a fraction of a second and portraits in 2 seconds out of doors and 10 seconds in the shade, the exposure being all that cases same as good for wet collodion. That's amazing. That right there would revolutionize your dry collodion photography, what you could do with it, right? I mean, that's a big deal. That is a big deal. Hello, Jan. Welcome. Good to see you, brother. So let's do this. And you can throw questions up. We'll come back to them if we need. But this is Malit and Steve, both. Malit's in Brooklyn. Steve's outside of Kansas City, Kansas there. And Steve's in the chat there. You should go check out their websites. They're good people, great, longtime collodionists, et cetera, et cetera. So this is an email I got from Malit. Sutton was a game changer. I love the title of it already. Quinn, she said some really nice things, and she said, I really appreciate being part of the community you forged. I love the word forged too. I don't know if she's playing on that or not, but I love it. I was knocked out by last week's session. Steve Wilson and I have been struggling through dry plate together, and it's been a really hard ride sometimes. You said one thing that other experts forgot to say that changed everything. Don't reuse your tannin. I mixed fresh each batch, but was totally reusing my tannin for all the dry plates in one batch. Reusing your tannin, that's what gives the density to the plate. When you reuse it or it's old or it's stale, you're just not going to produce negatives. It's not going to work, period. Part of the reason I've been losing it with dry plate process is that I get a decent plate now and then. I think I'd figured it out, and then the next 10 plates or so in the batch were all terrible, weak negatives. See? It was really an awful struggle in the darkroom that seemed so illogical. I can only imagine. I'm also kicking myself more than a little as I've read Sutton's manual several times, but jumped to the formula rather than read all the words. Yeah, I love reading these old manuals, but they pack things in here, little, if you could blow them up and say, pay attention, it'd be different, but they don't. They build it in and then they give you the recipe. Sometimes Sutton's pretty good at reiterating things, though. I've noticed he's a unique one. So here's my step test out the window just before Ida, the hurricane, the tropical storm, knocked out all the sunlight for the next bit of time. Done with the Sutton exactly as you described. Discarded the tannin after each plate. My only variance was my silver bath was pH 4, so I didn't add nitric acid to it. So the tech info, she's using a Crown graphic camera, 135 Schneider Zener lens, f11. She did a step test. You'll see him 2, 4, and 6 minute exposure, midday hazy sun, the 30th of August. That's Gustave Le Gray's birthday. I ended up developing about 4 minutes total and used 2 separate 30 mil batches of pyro and silver. You go back last week, you'll see those recipes. You can see where we went over all that. The first 30 mils got so charged with silvery sludge that I discarded it. The negative is pretty darn nice. I shot 2 test plates and both were darn nice. The voids look okay. The shadow, the clear glass, all except for the underexposed part of the neg. Of course, yep. That was the sludgy developer, I think. Exactly. Honestly, I can't thank you enough. I really thought I was losing my photographer's mind for a while. I know, I've been through that stuff too. Now it finally feels worthwhile to do some New York City location work again. Huge thanks for your help. So let's look at her plates. And thank you for sharing these, guys. I really appreciate that, Malit. I really appreciate it. So here's her, look at the color of this too. Here's her dry collodion negative she just talked about. So on the right, you see 2 minutes of very underexposed, 4 minutes looking sweet, and 6 minutes even looking pretty dang good right there. So that's the dry cloth, just held up, transmitted light. She just snapped it. I didn't do anything. I just copied and put it up here. This is the reverse positive. So you have, or not reverse, but this is the positive of it. So you have 6 on the left, 4 in the middle, and 2 on the right. It's interesting how that underexposed portion even translated quite well. Sorry, other way around. I'm backwards. She did flip it around. Let's look at this. So over here, the sedan is on the left, and the dark is 2, middle is 4, and 6 is on the right. Sorry, my bad. Step test from the negative. And then look at, she sent a detail shot of it. Stuff is amazing. It's amazing detail in it. That's a building in Brooklyn across from a place there. So dry plate is, we talked about the advantages and drawbacks and everything. But if you start employing some of these things Sutton's talking about, you can really take it up speed-wise and convenience of exposure and everything to what wet plate does. I think it's really great. So thank you again for sharing that, Melita, allowing me to share it. And then she sent one more email when I asked her if I could share it. She said, yeah, of course. And then she said, maybe on the show you could answer my new question. How fresh does a tannin need to be? Mix that day, mix in a week. I tend to make 8 ounces, filter, leave it in the bottle for a week or 2 until use. Now I mix it the day of. Any thoughts? Absolutely, Malik. Absolutely. In fact, I would encourage you, if you're going to do, 8 or 10 whole plates or 20 4x5s or whatever you're doing, mix up 300 mils, filter it and use it and discard it. Just use it up and get rid of it. Let your plates dry, because we all know it's good to go. You can leave these plates for a long time. Fresh tannin will give you the densest negatives, the best negatives ever. And so if you don't use it fresh, even letting it sit for a while, a couple of weeks, it'd be too long, especially in the summertime. You're probably going to have some variation in the density. So that's my answer to that. Let's see. Let's see what Chopper. Good to see you, Chopper. If an exposed plate loses its free silver when washed with distilled water, can one replace this before developing? Yes. Sutton I just read that, Chopper. Exactly right. He says if you sensitize a plate, pull it out and wash it, then expose it, and then develop it without any of the free silver, you're going to have a very, very weak image. So that free silver, his point is that free silver has to be there. And so the idea here is you pull it out, you wash it. The reason you wash it is to get rid of those nitrates from the double decomposition process and the bromides that are undecomposed bromides that are still left on the plate, then resensitize it, and those are gone. That you won't have that effect again. And then expose it. That's what he's talking about. Thinking of using glycerin-coated sensitized plate allowing. Yes, you know what, Chopper? I've tried that. I did exactly what you're talking about, and it didn't work. They were very weak. It was a huge waste of time. It didn't work. I would recommend going dry collodion if you're gonna go with that. Oh, thank you, Steve. There's Steve right there. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Steve. I appreciate that. You guys are great. So we had a really good week. We had Malit and Steve working on the Sutton dry collodion and giving us some real life examples and talking about what the problem was and the tannin and all that. And then we had Dale Wilson doing this dipping, washing, and redipping the plate for extended sensitivity, if you will. So I thank you for all of that, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate that. So I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Francesca Woodman. If you haven't, you should get to know her. She was born here in Denver, not here. I don't live in Denver anymore, but she was born in Denver, spent her time in Boulder, Colorado. I spent a lot of time in Boulder. And she was only 20. She was very young when she committed suicide. She was only 23 or something years old. But if this is called On Being an Angel from Anna Telgren. It's her work. She referred on Being an Angel. She always talked about merging with planes and surfaces and a very interesting identity and a very way ahead of her time. And if you haven't seen her work, please look her up. She'll be inspiring for you, I'm sure. No, she didn't work in collodion, but she used long exposures and motion, a lot about identity, about womanhood and being female. very interesting. I highly recommend that you look her up and grab this book if you can, or find it if you can. You won't be disappointed. And then the actual Lorber Films made this 11 years ago. The Woodmans, very great documentary on them. Her parents were artists, very eccentric, to say the least. Definitely influenced and had an effect on her life. And you'll hear in this clip, I'm going to play her this trailer. Oh, Henrik, hello, good to see you. Funny, I just read a Danish book about her life. Excellent, awesome. That's great. Well, good timing. I didn't know that. This was not planned, ladies and gentlemen. But a lot of people haven't heard about her or heard of her. But let's play this, the Woodmans, this trailer from their documentary.
I think it's hard to draw a line between Francesca being a provocative person as a choice and simply being provocative by her nature. We represented a family, which our children learn that art is a very high priority.
I couldn't live with somebody who didn't give making art the importance that I give it. I just would hate them.
Francesca always sort of held herself apart, aloof, one might say, from everybody.
There was a real rock star quality to Francesca because she was so ambitious and so talented and so driven and so focused.
I think we always got along with Francesca. I don't think either one of us thought, you know, this child is psychologically disturbed, she's depressed, she's what's going on. No, right?
No.
Beyond that kind of open sexuality, there was a lot of need.
She's a fragile person, and it caused her to make beautiful pictures.
Yeah, you should check it out if you can. It's a great documentary, and if at the very least, read about her, look at her work, read about her, what she's done, and what she's her life. Her life is fascinating. I mean, she actually she was in New York City, I guess. She was in New Hampshire for something, and then she moved to New York City. And at 22 or 23 years old, jumped out a window and killed herself. So pretty tragic. It happens. It's that way, I guess, for a lot of folks that some people say they're just not meant for this world, so to speak, right? I mean, so it's a very unique situation, but sometimes they produce just wonderful art. I don't plan on being in that category. That you've heard of the 27 Club, you know, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse, all these people. You know, I am 27, but I'm not going to join their club. No. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just kind of fairy tale stuff. But some artists are disturbed, and they channel that, and they work hard at that. And you see, look, I've been moving silver nitrate. I just noticed on my hands there. My hands I haven't been doing anything nasty. It's just silver nitrate. But so, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have. I know I'm a few minutes early. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If you have any comments, I'm trying to get some people lined up to show their work on here. I'm working toward that. People are busy. It takes a lot of time to get schedules lined up and everything. I'm trying to get my darkroom built out. We got everything moved in. All my stuff is moved into space. It's really nice. I'm super excited about doing that. So rather than just talking, I can show you some stuff. I'm going to start working on my projects and doing all that stuff. So, and if you have any work you want to show, if you want to come on and talk about something conceptual or technical, just holler at me. This is just open. There's no ulterior motive other than for trying to help people and make their artistic and technical lives a little bit better. So thank you, Pablo. Gracias, amigo. I appreciate that. And you, ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you next Saturday. Ciao.